What would you do, if someone you trusted turned your life upside down in just 3 months? Could you see it coming? Or would you only realize when it was too late? This is the story of Marian. A widow. A mother of 2 beautiful daughters. A woman who had already endured unimaginable loss, only to be pulled into a nightmare she never saw coming. She thought she found love, someone who would care for her, and perhaps, be the father figure her daughters needed. But instead, she found betrayal so calculated, so devastating, it would change everything she had worked for. Her story is a warning, one that might just save someone else. Marian was a survivor. She wasn't just a mother, she was a pillar of strength. After losing her husband, the love of her life, she was left to raise 2 little girls on her own. Life didn't give her a choice. She had to push forward, even when the weight of her grief felt unbearable. She worked tirelessly, day and night, to provide a stable home for her daughters, Emily and Grace. At just 7 and 10 years old, they were her world, her reason to keep going. Every packed lunch, every bedtime story, every late-night shift, it was all for them. But Marian wasn't just a mother. She was a woman with dreams of her own. Dreams she had quietly buried beneath the weight of responsibility. Deep down, though, there was an ache, a yearning she couldn't ignore. She wanted companionship. Not just for herself, but for her girls. Someone who could be the father figure they missed, someone who could fill the empty seat at the dinner table. She didn't know it then, but that longing, that quiet hope for a partner, it would soon become her greatest vulnerability. Marian's days were full, yet often lonely. Early mornings meant rushing to get Emily and Grace ready for school. She'd laugh with them over breakfast, hiding her exhaustion behind a smile. Afternoons were spent working long hours at her job, with thoughts of her girls keeping her going. And late nights? Those were for cooking meals, folding laundry, and making sure her daughters felt safe and loved. Her home was small but warm. The walls were lined with pictures of happier times, her husband's smile frozen in time, their wedding day, family trips. Memories she clung to as she tried to create new ones for her girls. But love can make you blind. It can make you vulnerable in ways you don't even realize. Marian's heart was open. Her need for connection was real. And soon, that open heart would be tested in ways she never could have imagined. It was a crisp Saturday morning. The local park buzzed with life, children laughing, balloons swaying in the gentle breeze, and families coming together for a charity event. Marian had brought her daughters, Emily and Grace, hoping for a day of fun, and maybe a little distraction from her busy life. Emily darted toward a booth filled with colorful balloons. Grace followed close behind, her giggles trailing through the air. Marian watched from a distance, smiling softly at the sight of her girls enjoying themselves. And then, she saw him. Larry was standing by the booth, handing out balloons and chatting easily with the families around him. He seemed different. His smile was easy, his demeanor confident but not overbearing. When Emily approached, he knelt to her level, handing her a bright red balloon with a playful wink. Marian couldn't help but notice how naturally he interacted with her daughters. Grace laughed at something he said, her shy nature melting away under his charm. He seemed safe. Warm. Like someone who truly cared. As the girls ran back to Marian, Larry followed behind, carrying the air of someone who belonged in their world. His voice was calm, friendly. "Your daughters are wonderful," he said, smiling genuinely. "They've already made my day." Marian chuckled softly, thanking him. She felt a flicker of something she hadn't in a long time, a spark of connection. Their conversation was brief, but Larry had a way of making it feel effortless. Natural. Like they'd known each other for years. Larry seemed like a dream, kind, attentive, and family-oriented. The kind of man Marian thought no longer existed. But dreams, as she would soon learn, can quickly become nightmares. Over the next hour, Larry stayed nearby, always within sight. He offered to help the girls with a small game booth, holding Emily's hand as she balanced on a beam, cheering Grace on as she tossed rings at bottles. His attention wasn't just on Marian's daughters, it was on her. Subtle, but undeniable. A compliment here, a knowing glance there. And with every moment, Marian felt herself letting her guard down. By the end of the day, Larry approached Marian again. His voice calm, his intentions seemingly pure. "I don't mean to intrude," he said, "but, would you mind if I bought you a coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about you and your girls." For a moment, Marian hesitated. But Larry's smile, the way he had connected with her daughters, it all felt so genuine. So real. So she said yes. Have you ever met someone who seemed too good to be true? Someone who knew exactly what to say, and how to say it. Pay close attention to this story, it might just save you from making the same mistake. If you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying the story we share, and we're glad to have you here. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another compelling relationship story like this one. Your support means everything. Tone shifts back to warm and reflective, signaling the start of a new chapter. For Marian, life began to feel brighter, fuller. Larry had a way of filling the empty spaces in her life, spaces she didn't even realize were there. He wasn't just a man she was dating. He quickly became part of her family. Larry integrated himself effortlessly. He helped Emily with her school projects and taught Grace how to ride her bike. He fixed a leaky faucet in the kitchen, painted the girls' bedroom a cheerful shade of yellow, and even started joining Marian for grocery runs. Every little thing he did made her feel cared for. Seen. For the first time in years, Marian felt a sense of partnership. Larry wasn't just loving her, he was loving her daughters. And that meant everything. But love has a way of clouding judgment, of blinding us to what's right in front of us. There were signs. Small at first, so small they were easy to overlook. Larry avoided questions about his past, brushing them off with a joke or a charming smile. He showed an unusual interest in Marian's finances, asking how much she earned, suggesting ways they could combine resources. And perhaps the most alarming, he was in a rush. A rush to move in. A rush to share responsibilities. A rush to take control. For Marian, it was easy to dismiss these things. How could she question someone who seemed so perfect? So genuine? After years of loneliness, she finally felt loved. Truly loved. She let her guard down completely, trusting Larry in ways she hadn't trusted anyone since her husband. But trust can be dangerous when placed in the wrong hands. And Larry's hands, they weren't as steady as they seemed. At first, it seemed like Larry was simply trying to help, trying to make Marian's life easier. He started small, offering to pay a few bills here and there, helping organize her paperwork. It all seemed thoughtful. Generous. But soon, those small gestures became bigger requests. "We're building a future together," he would say, his voice calm and reassuring. "Why don't we share responsibilities? Add me to the property deed, it'll make things easier." And Marian, trusting him, wanting so desperately to believe in their love, agreed. Larry's words were always kind, but beneath them was something sharper. Whenever Marian questioned him, he had a way of turning the conversation back on her. "Why don't you trust me?" he would ask, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I thought we were a team." And just like that, Marian's doubts would dissolve, replaced by guilt for even questioning him in the first place. Over time, Larry began to pull Marian away from her friends and family. "They don't understand us," he would say. "They're just jealous of what we have." It was subtle at first, an excuse here, a missed phone call there. But before long, Marian found herself more and more alone, with only Larry to lean on. And then, things began to unravel. One evening, Marian's daughter, Grace, overheard Larry on a phone call. His voice was low, hurried, and tense. She couldn't make out everything, but what she did hear made her stomach twist. "She'll never know," Larry said. "It's all in place." Grace told her mother the next morning, her small voice trembling as she repeated what she'd heard. Marian tried to dismiss it, tried to believe it was nothing. But something inside her, a quiet, insistent voice, told her otherwise. That evening, while Larry was out, Marian decided to look through his things. She hesitated, her hands trembling as she opened a drawer she had never touched before. And there, beneath a stack of papers, she found it, a document with her name on it. But next to it, was Larry's signature. A signature that shouldn't have been there. Her heart raced. The truth was right in front of her, and it was undeniable. Something wasn't right, and Marian couldn't shake the feeling that she was being used. Everything Larry had said, everything he had done, it all started to feel like a lie. Have you ever ignored your instincts about someone? That small, nagging voice that tells you something is wrong. Always trust your gut, it's often right. Marian didn't, and it nearly cost her everything. Marian had no idea that day would be different, that it would change her life forever. She had left for work like any other morning, her thoughts focused on her daughters, on their future. But while she was at work, Larry was putting the final pieces of his plan into motion. Larry had been waiting for the perfect moment. He had everything he needed, the documents Marian had unknowingly signed, the access he had carefully manipulated her into giving him. And now, he made his move. By the time Marian returned home, the locks on the doors had been changed. Her key no longer worked. Confused, she tried again. And again. Until the realization hit her, like a cold wave of dread. She knocked on the door, her heart racing. And then Larry appeared. Standing there, calm and collected, with a look that sent chills down her spine. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Larry didn't flinch. His response was cold, calculated. "This is my house now," he said, his words like a dagger to her heart. "You need to leave." Marian's world collapsed. Everything she had built, everything she had worked so hard for, was gone in an instant. Her belongings were piled outside like they meant nothing, scattered on the lawn as if her life had been erased. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of the betrayal. And Larry? He didn't care. He stood there, smug and unbothered, watching as the life he had taken unraveled before her eyes. His plan had worked, perfectly. Marian had trusted him. She had let him into her home, her life, her heart. And now, she was left with nothing but questions, and a pain so deep it felt unbearable. For days, Marian was paralyzed by shock and grief. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, she felt lost, as if everything she had worked so hard to build had crumbled beneath her feet. But Marian wasn't the kind of woman to give up. She was a mother. And for her daughters, she knew she had to fight back. Marian reached out to an old friend, a lawyer who had always told her to call if she ever needed anything. Nervously, she explained everything, the documents Larry had made her sign, the way he had taken over her home. Her voice trembled as she recounted the betrayal, but her lawyer listened, carefully, thoughtfully. And then he said something that gave her a glimmer of hope. "You have legal grounds to fight this." Those words lit a spark inside her. For the first time since it all began, Marian felt a sense of control. She wasn't powerless. She wasn't alone. With her lawyer's guidance, Marian started gathering evidence. She pieced together everything, texts, emails, and receipts. And as she delved deeper, she realized just how calculated Larry's actions had been. But Marian wasn't going to let him win. Not this time. She also turned to her community. Friends and neighbors who had once been pushed away by Larry's manipulation now rallied around her. They helped her with the girls, offered emotional support, and even contributed to her legal fees. Marian had thought she was alone, but she wasn't. She had a village, and that village stood by her side. It wasn't easy. The legal battle was long and draining. There were moments when Marian felt like giving up, when the weight of it all felt too much to bear. But every time she looked at her daughters, she found the strength to keep going. And then, finally, the day came. The court ruled in her favor. Larry was ordered to return the house and compensate Marian for her losses. It was a victory, hard-fought and well-earned. Marian had reclaimed her life. Marian learned the hard way that not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. But she also discovered something else, her own strength. She realized that even in the darkest moments, she had the power to fight back. To protect what mattered most. If you or someone you know is in a vulnerable situation, don't wait. Seek advice. Protect yourself. Your safety and well-being come first, always. Love is powerful, but so is self-preservation. Marian's story is a reminder to trust carefully, to protect yourself, and to never ignore the warning signs. Because sometimes, the people we welcome into our lives don't have the best intentions. What would you do, if you were in Marian's shoes? Would you fight back? Would you have seen the signs earlier? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if you found it touching or eye-opening, please don't forget to like this video. Your support helps us continue sharing stories like Marian's. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, so you never miss another tale that could inspire, or protect you. And if you think someone in your life could benefit from hearing this story, don't hesitate to share it. Together, we can make a difference.